Welcome to For Guys Only, a program that deals with topics specifically geared to the urban man. I'm Pastor William Lee, and I'm so thankful that you have joined us on today. Today, we're going to talk about mentoring, the need to mentor our urban youth. Stay tuned as we go right into our broadcast. Gentlemen, it is once again, it's so good to have you all today and to be able to discuss topics that affect the urban man. Today we have another very exciting topic, but before we get into that topic, let's first just take a moment to introduce ourselves to those who are viewing us today. I'll start right here.
Yes, my name is Brandon Dent. I am a retired auto executive, 27 years. I am now running my own marketing company, and I'm a lead mentor for a program called Be Men here in the Detroit area, reaching out to black males.
Okay, good.
My name is Colin King. I'm a father, a mentor, a psychologist, a husband, a friend, and a black male.
All right. Appreciate that very much.
My name is Muta Moya, Executive Director for Elijah 3 Ministries, and I too am a mentor and work within the urban community with some young men.
All right, good. And of course, I'm Pastor William Lee, pastor at the Capital City Seventh-day Adventist Church, Indianapolis, Indiana, pastor of the Lake Region Conference, married 7 years, 2 children, and I mentor my 2 children as well as some of the young people within our church as well. So let's talk about this concept right now because, I mean, in reality, we see that for the most part, our young black boys are not receiving mentors. I mean, they're out there and they're looking around trying to figure out, the best person, to kind of steer them, whether it's in a positive direction sometimes or in the negative direction. We're going to look at the Bible as we go forward, but what do you all sense as it relates to mentorship, especially as it relates to the urban youth?
Well, I think that, urban youth, first of all, have a greater need because of the absence of many fathers. And we've talked about that in several, or at least a couple of our previous episodes. So you have a greater need, and yet you have less of the solution. So that gap is wider for us as a people because of those 2 things.
Okay. What else do we see here? Because the Bible is absolutely clear. The Bible says in 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 17, it says, honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, and honor the king. The Bible specifically says that we have to honor all men and then to love the brotherhood. And as we see in our society today, once again, is that we have to make an effort to make an impact in the lives of our young people. And what can we do? Brandon, you talked about that you are a part of a mentor program right now, right, in the Detroit area. Talk about a little bit about what's happening in that program.
Well, we go in and we take topics, different topics where we know there is a need for development. Things like conflict resolution, preparing for success. Success doesn't just come. We wonder why we don't have and they do. Well, you need to understand what goes on behind the scenes. There's preparations built into their pattern of success. We need to learn how to do some of that. How to treat a woman, a young lady. How to show respect when you come into a building. Just things like take your hat off. A lot of people, even older guys, now just kind of keep their hats on indoors. And I'm not condemning anybody, but I think to teach the young men some of these older habits, it's refreshing to see them gravitate and say, you know what, I do want to be distinctive. I do want to attain a high level of being a gentleman. and holding doors. And you know, some of the guys will come back and say, "Well, a lot of girls don't want you holding the door for them." And say, then we say, "Well, you then let the door go." You know, but there's no harm in trying.
Okay.
But you don't have to force it on someone who's not ready for it.
Okay.
But I think that what I like is the fact that these young people are actually responding to love. You can put a lot of different topics on the table. Once they understand these guys care about us, they love us. And so I think the most important thing right up front is you have to be doing. You can't be doing it just because in a condescending way. Oh, these guys are messed up and I'm not, and so let me try to help fix them. No, you got to look at them as this is the brotherhood, and I need to be extending love to them. And once they see that, then they'll open up and they'll let you minister to them on these other matters.
Okay, awesome. Dr. King.
You know, Brandon is absolutely right. You know, we have strayed away from our roots. You know, we're from Africa originally, and we were supposed to be raised by a village, by our cousins and our aunts and our uncles. That's how we were meant to be raised. But currently, we live in a very individualistic society, where it's every man for himself, to the extent whereby I can see my friend's son or a black youth getting himself in trouble. I can tell myself, I'm not getting involved. You know, I'm not getting involved because I don't want anyone to blame me. And so because of that, we have a lot of black youth who are not properly mentored. You know, and as I said before, we've got about 62% of urban youth who are being raised by a single parent. And if as professionals we don't step in, then who's going to step in? You know, I recall a few months ago I invited a group of young people over to my house, and because I'd seen a tape on substance abuse, on what marijuana does to the human brain, and I really wanted to impart that information to them without lecturing them. So I made it into type of sort of a competition. I said, guys, you have a chance to win $50. Come over to my house. I'm going to give you a quiz. But in order to know the answer to the quiz or the answers, I'm going to show you a tape. And once you view the tape, you answer the questions, this is what you're going to get. And I was amazed at their enthusiasm.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, if as professionals, if as mentors, we can take the time to make the time to do stuff like that, we can make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's the key that you just said right there, that we take the time. You know, we have been blessed by God to be a blessing to others. We're not to keep those blessings to ourselves. And I think that we can do some very practical things as it relates to taking time out of our schedules to be able to help somebody else along the road. It's as simple as this, you know, especially in churches. A lot of people say, what can my church do to help mentor? What can we do even as a men's ministry to help mentor? There are some things so simple as teaching young boys how to tie a tie. You know, we want our boys to be professional at some point. We want them to be able to walk into an interview and have a nice knot in their tie. But a lot of times, if there's not been someone there to teach them how to do that, they just won't have any idea, you know, or even a bow tie or whatever it is that you're wearing right now. Teaching our young boys how to shave. You'll be surprised that there are so many, you know, boys growing up that just don't have anyone to tell them, hey, don't go against the grain, go, you know, with it, you know, have a good, smooth shave that way. So, Dr. King, what you're saying is, you know, I think it's very, very applicable to our world, to our society today, that we got to take the time to do it.
Also, we need to get in step with them. You know, we need to keep up, you know. Our kids today are being raised by Facebook and Twitter and all of the other social media. And I've learned that if my kids are out or their friends are out and I want to reach them and I call them on the phone, they don't answer. They just don't answer. But if I send them a text, they respond right away. So we've got to learn how to keep up with what has their interest.
Yeah, that's true. Move to talk a little bit about your experience as a mentor, especially as you work in the urban city with urban youth. What's been your experience with mentorship?
As Brandon said, we can't come with this looking down on you. I'm here to help you. You know, like you're this handout. And there's one phrase that kind of gets me every time somebody says it. They say, well, I'm working with him. Here goes a kid that I'm working with. What do you mean you're working with them? Now, as adults, as professionals, we may understand what he's saying, but if that kid ever hears you say, I'm working with him, now all of a sudden I'm some robot, I'm some broken thing that you're trying, some project exactly that you're trying to fix. Having a genuine love for them. Christ says, Paul says, if you have not love, that should be the foundation of the mentorship, the mentor-mentoree relationship. It should be love. It shouldn't be out of, this is what I need to do as a man, so I'm just going to go do it, because then it's not genuine. So I found that they're most responsive when they realize that, wow, this guy's really genuine. And although it gets tough sometimes, especially dealing with urban young people, sticking to it, even in those tough times, really shows them that you love them. So I think that's really big.
That's good.
Good. I just heard a sermon that talked about when you minister, you have to come to realize that God calls you to minister not so much for what you could do for the people you minister to, but because it ministers to you.
Yes.
That there is spiritual progress that you cannot make except you do that ministry.
That's right.
And that's a humbling piece. When we start to realize that the child is not the project, I am
the project. Yeah,
that's right.
I'm the project. So I thought that was very powerful, and it shapes the attitude that we have when we go to minister.
That's good. That's good. Dr. King, talk a little bit about, again, some of the historical perspective as it relates to mentorship, especially, again, in the urban community. These black boys, and we all have sons, and we all know the challenges. But what else can we do, especially as men, to make a difference in their lives? Sure.
We need to be always aware that our values are not taught. Values are caught. So, as we interact with them, as we mentor, we're not teaching them by the things we say. We're teaching them by the things we do. I've got an elder in my church. He's a physician. I'm saying that because he's extremely busy. But I've seen him take time off from his busy schedule to coach the young kids in my church to play basketball.
Okay.
And my son, he's 6'3", and I'm always saying, you are so uncoordinated. Play a sport, play a sport. And he has never played basketball before. He has never played basketball. And I was amazed 2 weeks ago. I sat and watched him play, all because of the mentorship of this elder in the church. And as a matter of fact, Brandon was playing in the game right after.
Oh, yeah.
So values, values are not taught. Values are caught. So I think it's critical for us to model what we want to see in them. Because when you look at the biblical way of life, the younger man sat at the feet of the older man.
Yes.
And they were taught certain biblical principles. They were taught certain financial principles, certain social principles. And some of these young men didn't necessarily have a father, but the older men took them under their wings and mentored them. Once again, it comes back to this whole concept of it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child.
That's good. That's good. Is there a gap in the church? We look at it, and I appreciate what you just said, that it takes, the older men must get with the younger men, and the younger men by all means must respect the wisdom that comes from the older men. But is there a gap, that you all have noticed in the church, especially as it relates to that concept of the younger men listening to the older men, or even the older men wanting to be around the younger men, take that time, and invest in them? Is there a gap at all? And if so, if there is a gap, what can we do to fill that gap?
Yeah, there certainly is a whole generational gap. and we have lost some of our young people because we have failed them. We haven't taken the time to figure out how to identify with them. We haven't taken the time to find out what it is that is grabbing their attention and trying to walk in their shoes and trying to be there with them. One of the things I'm seeing, I'm always critical about this in our church. Most of the officers are older people. We need to put young people in those positions. We need to train them, first of all. But we need to invest in them. And we need to see them not necessarily as leaders of tomorrow, but leaders of today.
That's right.
So there is a huge gap, and we can narrow that gap by working with them now.
And let me because this is so interesting that, and it's almost amazing that we do it in the church that way. Because in, for instance, sports, men, as we talked about before, we go all out for our boys or even our girls. If we see there's some potential in them, I have friends that, and I know people that take their sons and their children to camps for the entire summer, and they assign a mentor, with them to hone their skills and to get that jump shot just right and to get that pass right. And we invest it on secular things. But I think the point is well taken that we have to make sure that we are investing it spiritually. That we assign, and especially for those who are coming into the church as well, spiritual mentors. Mentors that can help you understand God in a way that's applicable, that's practical to our everyday lives.
Absolutely.
And I think that's critical.
And we need to give them a chance to make mistakes.
That's right.
They're not going to say it quite like how we expect them to say it.
That's right.
They're not going to dress quite like us. Their pants are going to sag a little. Their music is going to be different. Their language is going to be different. We don't want them to behave like us.
That's right.
But we want them to stay close to us so that we can guide them and show them the right way.
Right.
And one of the reasons why they pull away, going back to this question about the gap, is because we create it. We say, hey, listen, young man, I don't like the way you dress. I don't like your music. I don't like the way you chit-chat in the back pew of the church or out in the hallways. And not that all of these things should just be accepted, but it's the approach that I'm talking about. You go through all of that and you say, okay, now let me mentor you. It's not going to work. The kid is going to pull back because you've already put a divide you've broadened the gap between you and them and basically made your mentoring ministry pretty ineffective in that situation.
Go ahead.
What I found out as well is that our young people, and they just want to be able to have a voice a lot of times. They just want to be able to say what's on their mind without, again, being condemned, without being, telling that you did it wrong, you're not doing it right. They just want to be able to have a voice, and then on top of that, they want to be able to have somebody, and especially a man. You think about it. We talked in a previous episode about our affirmation meaning to be affirmed, because our ego and different kinds of stuff. It means a lot, for a mentor or even another man to come up to another man or to a young boy and say, you know what, you did that well. You just knocked that out the frame, and not always as it relates to sports. It relates to maybe if you're in a church setting, a young person did the scripture reading and they come out the pulpit and you give them a high five and you say, sometime, you did that. Great. I'm proud of you. And those words just say, I'm proud of you, that goes so much further than anything else. That boosts confidence, boosts everything else. If we could just hear that more often. And I think that's where mentorship comes in, because if there is not a father in the home, or if there's someone that's not boosting that person up, at least there's somebody that's in your corner. Somebody that's going to call your name and say, okay, you can do it, keep on going. I know it looks bad right now, but keep on trucking away. And I know personally that when that happens, you give it your best. I ran cross country in high school. Not across the country, but I ran this thing called cross country, 3.1 miles. And my father was there. He would come to my meets, so we're not going uphill, going downhill, which is kind of a thing we do in life as well. But what I appreciate is that on that journey, there were people on the journey that were saying, all right, You just have one more mile left.
Absolutely.
All right, one more mile. All right, you can do it. You can do it. And then when it came across to the home stretch, there were people, you know, in my corner that was saying, come on, William, come on, William. Give it all you have. And, you know, as tired as I felt, you know what? I gave it all I had. I came in full sprint because I wanted to finish strong. And as it relates to, you know, this world that we live in right now, we've got to teach our young boys how to finish strong, not to give up, not to throw in the towel in the time that we live in right now.
And cheer them on along the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Cheer them on every step of the way. Talk a little bit more about some of the innovative ways, because we don't want to do things. We don't want to be caught in doing things like our grandfathers did it, or you know, other people did it, our elders did it. What kind of innovative ways can we do as well to be effective as it relates to mentorship and reaching our urban youth?
You know, young people like to be independent. They love to drive. And so what I have done, I have assisted in teaching some of the young people in my church how to drive.
Okay.
You know, took them out in my car, bought the cones, spend the time, you know, not overtly mentoring them, but just befriending them. And it's amazing how much they appreciate that. As a matter of fact, one of the young person, when she passed her driving test, she sent me a text. She said, thank you so much, I passed my exam.
That's all right.
That felt good.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it goes back to you investing time.
Absolutely.
Right? That's one thing. What else can we do? Let's kind of roll out the ideas, because somebody's listening to us right now and they want to know, okay, that was a good example, you know, driving, and that's going to make a difference in a young person's life. What else, you know, have you all done, or what else can we do to really make a difference in this generation that we live in right now? That's a good example. What else you would think?
Well, I help kids with their homework once a week. My daughter and some of her friends get together at my house. I'm really into the math thing. So I'm always hoping they have math. But if they've got social studies, I'll plug in and help just the same.
Okay.
And that has helped me to develop some relationships with some of her peers, so that when I need to maybe approach them in a more sensitive, on a more sensitive subject, they're now open, because they know this man cares for us, because he takes time. We feed them. My wife gets in the kitchen and she cooks food and feed them, and they just love coming over and having that time, and it opens them up. So again, I think the key is us being putting into them first, out of a sense of love, and then it opens them up, so that when there is a need for duty, they're open to hear it from you.
Okay.
You know, also I've taken some of my clients to my daughter's classroom, and I've had them share their experiences in terms of battling substance abuse and dealing with peer pressure. And I can't tell you how proud my daughter was of me coming into her classroom, because here was her dad doing something positive.
Okay.
So I think that's a great way of providing mentorship to our kids.
That's good. That's good.
Another way that I've done is just flat out hanging out with them.
Okay.
I just go where they go, hang out. Well, there's bounds. there was one opportunity, maybe we're talking about it later, where I kind of let things go. I wanted to be that fly on the wall, and it really opened my eyes out. But that's not for the faint-hearted, I'll tell you that. But literally just getting in their world. I've heard the saying, doing life with them, and just hanging out with their friends, getting to know them, allowing them to be comfortable, because when they get comfortable with you to that point where they can bring you around their friends, now you get to see their worldview, that you get to see what shapes their thoughts, what shapes their minds, what influences them. And then on the flip side, not only hanging out with them there, but letting them hang out with you and your friends. A lot of times when we're working with, especially urban youth, we're kind of afraid to bring them into I don't want nothing to go missing. You know what I mean? I don't want, you know,
Sure.
so,
Sure.
But bringing them in and including them in some of your activities with your friends and letting them experience what it is like to be a grown man.
Okay.
You know, so.
Okay. That's good. It's good. You know, I strongly believe in my whole heart that every Joshua needs a Moses. Every Joshua needs a Moses. And I say that to say that, even as a young preacher, by no means do I know it all. And I have to be able to, call on some people with experience. And I thank God that I have people in my life that I'm able to call, and to say, what do you think about such and such? And a lot of times they say, you know what? You're killing yourself. Don't do it that way. Rethink, what's happening right now. And I say that to say, in the last 3 minutes or so that we have left is that what has your experience been with a mentor, your own personal experience? Have you had somebody in your corner that's cheered you on? Because Brandon, as a business exec, retired your own company now, you were very successful. And we praise God for that. And Dr. King, clinical psychologist, several degrees as well. In your own right, you are extremely successful as well. And Muta, you're same thing with Elijah 3 Ministries, executive director, and steering young people. God has blessed you, and I know God's blessed me as well. Have there been people in your corner that said, you can do it? What's that experience been like?
I can look back to an elder in my church. Maybe it was about 6 or 7 years my senior. And I've never forgotten his words of encouragement. He has never criticized me. And even when I didn't quite do it the way he expected, he always approached me with humor. That wasn't so good, so how are you going to better that the next time around? Okay. And, he has been pivotal in allowing me to remain in the church, in allowing me to be focused. Mm-hmm. And, just because of his words of encouragement as opposed to discouragement.
Okay, that's good.
I've never had anybody go officially on record as my mentor. Okay. But when I look back over my life, I see people who naturally made it their business to put some guidance in my life at strategic points in time, sometimes for periods of time in then out, but they were there. And at every phase, in work, in education, you name it, I can identify people who served that role for me.
Okay. What'd you say?
Most definitely. I'm allowed to mention names?
Sure.
Because I will. 3 men who've been very significant in my life is Jason North, Pastor Jason North, also in the Lake Region Conference, Darnell Allen, and Earl Abrams. Okay. These men have been real influential into bringing me to where I am sitting right here by the grace of God, working through these 3 gentlemen. So they've just been amazing. Until this day, they still are men who I look up to, and they're only, 9 years older than me?
Okay. My friends, it's interesting that as we sit here and we recognize that every perfect gift and every gift has come again from God, we don't think ourselves to be higher than anybody else, but we do recognize that we are blessed. No matter where you are in life, you are blessed to be a blessing. I want to challenge you to look around, even in your own household or on the outside of your household, and see who can you make a difference with in the time that God has given you. Until next time, I'm Pastor William Lee, and we thank you so much for joining us in today's discussion. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you in His loving grace.